Well, hello there. My name is Ed Lieberman, and I want to be the first to welcome you to Train Signal's CompTIA A Plus training course. In this first lesson in the course, which we call Getting Started with CompTIA A Plus Training, kind of makes sense, huh? I just want to quickly go through and, well, give you a brief introduction as to who I am, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing with this course. So first of all, who am I? Well, let me see if I can keep this short because, let's be real. You didn't come here to learn about me. You came here to learn about A+. So real quick, as I mentioned a moment ago, my name is Ed Lieberman. And I'm just a guy who has been working with computers for a very long time. I have formally worked in the technology arena in some capacity for the past 20 years or so. But even before that, I was, even as a child, I was always just tinkering around with electronics and with computing devices. Now, I've also been certified and instructing IT professionals since 1998. So, what's that? About 15 of those 20 years, I have been specifically doing as my primary role, pretty much what I'm doing for you right now. Okay, where I received my own IT certifications and I've been sharing information to help many other IT professionals advance their careers, start their careers, and get their certifications. As you can see, I have a bunch of alphabet soup that goes along with my name. A lot of Microsoft certifications, a few CompTIA certifications, even some wireless certifications. It's just something you do, especially when you are an instructor in the IT field. You go out there and you take a lot of tests and you get a lot of letters. But don't worry so much about that other than the fact that obviously A plus is one of those letters, and well, that's important to know that the person talking to you actually is A plus certified if they're going to be talking to you about A plus certification. Beyond that, I have one last bullet point that I throw on here where it talks about how I volunteer my time in the local community as a math tutor for struggling grade school children. And it's interesting because when I see this, I haven't done much of this lately. I've been way too busy and need to give back to the community a little bit more like I used to. And the reason I put this down there is I don't want you to think I'm some kind of special guy or some hero working with kids or anything like that. The reality is I just want you to understand the kind of person I am in the sense that where I get pleasure in life, and by the way, that is the key to success as far as I'm concerned, and professional success as well, is doing something that you really enjoy. All right, and where I get pleasure in life is by helping others. When I can see somebody else who is struggling with something that I understand, and then I can convey that information to them so that they can understand it, and they can then go on and do bigger and better and more successful things. Well, that makes me happy. Okay, so that's why I like helping out the kids because a lot of kids struggle with math. It's a very sore subject for a lot of children, and I happen to be naturally good at math, and I happen to be naturally good at teaching math, apparently, so they tell me. So I go ahead and I get additional pleasure out of life by going ahead and helping some of these kids to kind of get past that hurdle or past that roadblock that's been stopping them from being successful in their school careers. Okay, so just kind of in general, it's the type of guy that is going to be here talking to you for the next however many hours about A plus certification. Now, speaking of being here and talking to you for many hours, well, what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to go over a lot of stuff throughout this course. We're going to talk about some PC hardware like motherboards, processors, memory, or what's known as RAM, expansion cards, storage devices, input output ports and devices, power supplies, the BIOS, displays. We'll even get in and look at certain customized systems. We'll go over all sorts of different networking and how computer networking works. We'll talk about laptops, printers, computer safety, environmental practices, professional practices, and incident response. That's a lot of stuff. Okay, and yeah, there's a good number of lessons in this course. If I were to count them up, I think it's somewhere in the high 20s. I think we have about 27, 28 lessons or so. So there's a lot of stuff to go over. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, man, how can I possibly take all that in with just one course? Right? And this is all, if you're looking to get A plus certified, this is all on one exam. Don't let this freak you out. Okay? Because yeah, it's a lot of information, but you need to understand that A plus is an entry level certification, and this is entry level material. Okay, so we're gonna cover a lot of stuff, but it's only gonna go so deep. You're not going to be expected to be the absolute number one foremost expert in every last piece of this. Okay, the idea is to be able to say that in general, you are a PC technician, right? In general, you can work with computers. Okay, so I want to caution you on this. It's a very common thing to get all excited and to think, I am going to become an IT professional. I'm going to work with computers. And you go and you take that first course, which you might be doing right now, and then you hit some point where you feel overwhelmed with information and that you're like, wow, maybe I'm not cut out to be an IT professional. What I'm describing to you is very normal. And so I want you to get past that and be able to say, no, no, Ed told me this way back at the beginning that, well, this is going to be tough, and I'm going to hit some of these roadblocks, and I'm going to need to learn how to work past them because you're just like everyone else. Okay, so, and I don't want you to take that the wrong way when I say you're just like everyone else, like, well, anybody can do this. Not anybody can do this, okay? And the reality is you may get to a point where you decide that, well, maybe computers aren't for you, and maybe an IT professional is not the way you want to go. But the way I've designed this course is with the hope that even if that was the case, you'll still be glad you watched it because you'll still get information that you didn't have before, and you'll have an understanding of, even if it's just your own home PC, you'll understand a little bit more about how it works. I know that's how I approached it when I first looked at the A plus certification, and I took my first A plus course a long time ago. I looked at it from a perspective of, if nothing else, if I can't succeed professionally, I'm at least going to gather some really cool information. Okay, so I want you to look at it that way. This is really cool, fun stuff that you're going to learn about, and it's going to benefit you one way or another. Now let me talk to you just a little bit here on how I think you should use the course. Or I don't even want to say how I think you should use it. This is maybe just one recommendation of kind of a set of ideas on how to use the course. Because one thing I make clear to all of my students, and I always have for all the years, is don't let anyone tell you how to learn. Okay? I will convey information, but only you can truly know yourself and know how you learn. Okay? And that is something that's important, is if you don't know yourself and you don't know how you learn, because maybe you've always been told how to learn, well, start looking at yourself and figure out how to learn. But basically here, the first bullet point I have here is an obvious one. Watch the lessons, right? I mean, watch the course, right? Yeah, that's the whole reason why we're here. So start off by watching the lessons, but I want you to keep in mind that one of the really cool things about learning the way we're learning here is that you have the ability to learn at your pace. If you were to go and sit in a classroom with an instructor, and by the way, I've been a classroom instructor for many years, and I'm a huge advocate of classroom learning, so I'm not trying to say that that's a bad thing. But I want to point out here that if you were in a classroom, the one, I suppose, bad or negative aspect is that you are stuck with the instructor's timetable. Right? You're going to show up when the training center and the instructor tells you to, and you're going to sit there until the instructor says you can go home. I mean, that's pretty much how it works. And we're all adults, so I suppose you could go ahead and get up and walk out of a class if you want, but then you're going to miss out on material. Well, here you learn at your own pace, and if you have something else you need to do, somewhere else you need to be, or maybe you're just kind of gotten yourself into information overload and you need a break, well, then just pause the lesson. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Just go ahead and pause the lesson and come back later. And I will also add to that pausing the lesson gives you the ability sometimes to take notes. Some people like writing down notes as they learn things. It helps them to learn. And if you're one of those people, then by all means, at any point in time, I mean, I tend to talk real fast. If I'm talking quickly and I'm moving on to the next item and you're like, wait, I want to make a few notes of what you just said. Pause the lesson, take some notes. Practice the material. Now, this is something that I say in all my courses, whereas with this course, there's not as much to practice. There's a lot more learning here in this particular course than there is doing. But the practice that I would refer to is as we talk about, let's say a piece of PC hardware, go ahead and open up a computer and find that component, or go out and purchase that component, or whatever it is that you need to do. Go ahead and find a way to practice and work with the components that you're learning about. Now, another nice thing about this type of training is, well, you can go back, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with watching the same lesson a second or a third or fourth or fifth or sixth, however many times you want to watch it. Okay, nothing wrong with that at all. And I'm certainly not at all offended if I knew that you watched a lesson and you said, wow, there's a lot of information in there and I only retained about 25% of it. I need to go back and watch it again. Okay. Because guess what? Again, that tends to be normal. Statistically, there have been studies done that actually show that when you go to a class, okay, so again, I mean, I've spent a lot of years in the classroom, so I've researched a lot of this. When you come to a class and you sit there for a week, usually some of the highest levels, some of the best people in the class only retained 50% of what was presented that week. And there's a lot of averages that say that you'll be in the 25 to 30% range when you only hear the information once and you're taking in this quantity of information. So there's nothing wrong with going back and watching a lesson again. Now, there are also practice questions which are included with the course, okay, so getting you ready for the certification exam. So I recommend that you do those practice questions. I also recommend that you use them as additional study material. And what I mean by that is you may get a practice question and I didn't literally cover the answer to that question in my lecture, in my demonstration of the course. Okay, there is a lot of material that is covered on these exams, and what I have found is that you typically would be hard-pressed to find any one resource all by itself that covers every last aspect and every last question, and therefore you would automatically get 100% on the test. Okay, it just doesn't exist, and that's okay. That's why we go ahead and give you the dual resources. You have the one resource, which is me and my presentation, but then you have the other resource, which is the practice questions. And if you see a practice question and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't remember Ed specifically covering that in the course. Now, I probably covered that objective or that topic in the course, but maybe I didn't answer that literal question. Well, there's an opportunity for you to go ahead and try to find the answer. Find it by either looking at a computer and seeing if you can, visually see the answer. Go out onto the internet and search for the answer. There's all sorts of different resources, and Train Signal has plenty of resources if you need to come back to us to help find the answer to those questions. Matter of fact, even the questions themselves have the answers, and then they will also very often give you an explanation as to why that's the right answer or where you can go research more information about it. Okay, so I strongly recommend that you do that whether you are going to get certified or not. Okay, because even if you're not going to get certified and you're just looking to learn here, again, the practice questions are supplemental learning material. Now, along those same lines, there is a lesson that I have way almost at the very end of this course. It's called Preparing for Your CompTIA A+ Certification Exam. Okay, that's the name of that lesson. And in that lesson, I actually go over some of what I just explained to you here right now as far as how to use the practice test questions and stuff like that. But I'll also go over some other information about the certification exam. So if you are looking to get certified, I do recommend that you watch that lesson. And then there's also the very last lesson in the course, which is called Next Steps, which is a lesson. Don't jump into that lesson now, but basically it's a lesson where I will quickly kind of go over review everything with you, and then talk to you about what's next. Like, what do you do now that you're done with the course? Where do I go from here? Because that's the other very typical, very normal thing that people will go through is they will learn this material, they'll get good at it. They'll maybe even pass their A plus certification exam, and they're sitting there in this point of going, well, now what do I do? Well, I will help you with that in the next steps lesson. And that then does bring us to the end of this first lesson on getting started with your A plus certification training. But basically, what you see in front of you right now, this nice, pretty thank you for watching, get used to it because when you see this, this always lets you know you can take a big sigh of relief. It means you've gotten to the end of a lesson. I have one of these on each one of my lessons, okay? So basically, this signifies we're at the end of this lesson. You'll see this at the end of every lesson. And I do thank you for watching. And I'm really excited and I hope you are as well. And so I will see you in the next lesson where we go ahead and get started talking about, well, computers.